Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and welcome aboard the Eastern Express. When Moldova unveiled its 10-year defense plans, its prime minister predicted hysterical voices would attack it. Well, Moscow didn't even wait for the ink to dry before proving him right. Because in Russia's eyes, every neighbor that dares to defend itself is suddenly a NATO base in disguise. Now for Moldova, the next decade won't be about how loud Moscow shouts, it'll be about how resilient Chisinau becomes. And in a region where silence used to mean survival, that resilience may finally be Moldova's loudest answer yet. So, without further ado, let's take a look at our latest report to find out more.
For years, Moldova had defined its security through what it wasn't. No army ambitions, no foreign bases, no enemies. But on October 8th, the government in Chisinau turned the page, approving a comprehensive military strategy that looks squarely toward 2035. The plan sets out 18 priority areas, from modern command systems to new communications infrastructure. It's a roadmap meant to bring Moldova's armed forces closer to European and international standards, and to lift its defense out of a post-Soviet time capsule. Chisinau insists the reform stays within the bounds of neutrality, that the military remains purely defensive. Yet the ambition is unmistakable: to make the Moldovan army effective, professional and interoperable with Western partners. The document promises gradual budget increases and technological modernization. That means reorganizing the army structure, boosting cyber defenses and integrating into joint peacekeeping missions under the UN, OSCE and EU flags. It is also a statement of intent, a message to both allies and adversaries. After years of Russian disinformation about Moldovan troops going to Ukraine, Chisinau now sets its own narrative. Modernization doesn't mean militarization. A decade from now, Moldova hopes to stand firmly in Europe's security architecture. Still neutral, but no longer naive. A small country drawing new lines of defense in an uncertain world.
And now, let's zone in on the East playing portion of our show. 3 decades after the 1992 war, when Moscow's forces backed local separatists against newly independent Moldova, Russian troops remain inside the breakaway region of Transnistria. Moscow calls them peacekeepers, Chisinau calls them illegal. Here's the force on the ground and why it still matters.
Russia's military presence in the area rests on a 1992 ceasefire, but also on promises never kept. At the 1999 OSCE Istanbul summit, Moscow pledged to withdraw all forces from Moldova by the end of 2002. It didn't. A small operational group of Russian forces, about 1,500 strong, stayed on, without Moldovan consent in Transnistria. On the ground, the core mission is guarding Kolbasna, one of Eastern Europe's largest munitions depots. Anywhere between 500 and 800 Russians are securing the site near Ukraine's border. Another roughly 400 quote-unquote peacekeepers in Tiraspol patrol the ceasefire line. Some 400 more handle the headquarters, logistics and signals tasks. The rank and file are largely local Transnistrians on Russian contracts. Most career officers rotate in from Russia, a rotation Moldova has heavily restricted since 2022. This is a light force, but what amplifies its weight is politics and leverage. Transnistria's economy leans on Russian cash and energy, while troops and the Kolbasna depot give Moscow a say over Moldova's security decisions and an intelligence perch on the Europe's frontier.
And now, let's take a look at the issue in greater detail. The Moldovan government just approved its military strategy from 2025 to 2035, a 10-year plan to build what it calls a modern, professional, well-equipped army, capable of defending the country's sovereignty as well as contributing to global peace missions. It sounds modest, and it is. Moldova plans to increase the size of its armed forces to around 8,500 soldiers and boost defense spending to just 1% of GDP. But for a country of barely 2.5 million people that's long declared itself neutral, it is a big psychological step. The new strategy focuses on bringing Moldova's defense standards closer to those of the European Union, developing special operation forces, cyber defense, as well as intelligence capabilities. And these are the kind of modern tools most states rely on for deterrence. In other words, Moldova wants to move from symbolic neutrality to functional security. And its Prime Minister, Dorin Recean, knows exactly what was coming. When presenting the plan, he said, quote, hysterical voices would attack it. Voices, he added, that have kept Moldova's defense sector in poverty and disorder. An attitude that, in his words, benefit the aggressor state. Now, he didn't really name the aggressor, and he didn't really have to, because by the time the announcement ended, Moscow had already begun its performance. The Kremlin's reaction was textbook. First came the feigned shock, or the classic, how dare Moldova fear us routine, where Russian officials claimed bewilderment that Chisinau could view Moscow as a threat. And then comes the projection. The deputy foreign minister called Moldova's plan another step towards militarization, accusing it of becoming a supply base for Kyiv. And just like that, Moldova's small step towards self-defense become, in Russia's eyes, an act of aggression. The irony, of course, is that Moscow has spent decades doing exactly what it accuses Moldova of doing, militarizing and interfering. Russia maintains troops in the breakaway Transnistrian region since the 1990s. It sponsors disinformation through Moldova's pro-Russian parties, manipulates the Gagauz autonomous region, and pours propaganda into the media space daily. So when the Kremlin says Moldova's new defense plan is anti-Russian, what it really means is anti-occupation. What's especially revealing is the scale of Russia's outrage. Moldova isn't buying F-16 or anything, it's not applying for NATO membership, and it's not even arming for offensive capability. It's talking about better communications, electronic warfare defense, and cybersecurity. Hardly the stuff of invasion armies. Moldova's attempt to modernize its army is symbolic of something the Kremlin fears far more than tanks: self-determination. And that's what makes this new strategy significant. It's not a declaration of war, it's a declaration of intent. The intent to survive, to modernize, and to anchor Moldova's future firmly in the European project. And if Russia finds Moldova's commitment to sovereignty threatening, maybe the problem isn't Moldova's strategy, maybe it's Russia's behavior that makes every defense plan seem anti-Russian by default. And now, here to shed more light on the issue is Mihai Isaac, a political analyst from TVR Moldova. Hello, sir, and welcome to Eastern Express.
Thank you very much for your invitation.
So today we want to discuss the 10-year defense plan of Moldova. And well, what I do find interesting is that just very shortly after the announcement, there seems to be some ruffled feathers within Moscow. Before we get into that, though, can you first give us a kind of a scale of what we're looking at here? What does this defense plan entail, and what make Moscow so threatened?
First of all, I want to say that in this period, we in the Republic of Moldova are under Russian hybrid siege. And any decision made by pro-European government in Chisinau will be contested by Moscow. Our military strategy for 10 years, it's a big part of our process of European integration. We want to Europeanize our army. We want to make it more suitable for the needs of the current situation on this hybrid front opened by Russia against us and against our partner states. And of course, this takes in account that the Republic of Moldova is a neutral country according to our constitution. So this military strategy is a defensive strategy. This strategy wants to take our military, which was regarded as an institution which didn't command a lot of respect in our society before this war, to make it an European institution. Unfortunately, during the pro-Russian government in the Republic of Moldova, especially during the time of the regime of former Communist President Voronin, our army was neglected and received under 1% of our national budget. So by this strategy, the pro-European government has tried to bring it to this century, According to our military strategy, in 10 years, the military of the Republic of Moldova will be formed from 8,500 officers and soldiers, and another 2,000 civilians who will work in the Ministry of Defense. And this strategy has been put in place with the help of course, with our partner states from European Union. As I said, this is only a defensive strategy, and it implies that it will take measures only to defend our country. It regards the cybernetic warfare, it regards air defense, defense against the drones, and again, has been trying to put forward to our public a new and reformed army. Because of the current situation, and because we in the Republic of Moldova have we have a region called Transnistria under direct military Russian occupation for over 3 decades. This military strategy takes in account the need of defense of our country. But because this strategy was clearly thought to be a response to a Russian hybrid warfare, of course, Moscow didn't like it. But if you look at what is in this military strategy, you can realize that Moldova does not have the capacity, and Moldova does not want to be in a war with Russia. But of course, the warmongers from the Russian administration in Moscow are implying that this strategy was put forward so that Moldova will join NATO or will join the war in Ukraine. This is part of the giant fake news offensive which is launched against us daily. And and this military strategy, it's only the latest weapon in the hybrid arsenal of the Russian Federation.
Right, like I mentioned before, ever since the election of a more pro-EU government, whatever they do, there's bound to be some level of pushback from Russia. However, when talk about the defense and military strategy, is it fair to also say that this is also a declaration that Moldova is indeed trying to lean towards the West, and that this oversized reaction from Russia is them panicking as well?
Of course, you are right. So this strategy was put in place when was approved to be implemented over 10 years, and it regards the Europeanization of our army. So we must understand that today, Moldovan army cannot even resist in a small war against the Russian occupation forces in Transnistria. So, with the help of our partner states, the Republic of Moldova wants to make our military more suitable for the current security needs of the Republic of Moldova. Of course, Ukraine plays an important part in the defense of the Republic of Moldova by the simple fact that it resists against the illegal Russian aggression. But Transnistria remains a big problem because that area is a secure area from which the Russian secret services are operating against the Republic of Moldova, against Ukraine, against Romania, and against other European countries. This military strategy it's part of overall Europeanization of our country, and of course the desire of European integration of the Republic of Moldova does not bring any change in the statute of neutrality of the Republic of Moldova. As you are aware, in the European Union, we have 4 countries with some kind of neutrality: Malta, Cyprus, Ireland, and Austria. But the Russian military propaganda machine wants to present this military strategy as a part of becoming a member of NATO. The Russian hybrid warfare machine here in Moldova puts an equal sign between European integration and membership of NATO. And of course, because of our Soviet past, NATO does not have a good image in many parts of Moldovan society, but people are starting to understand that being a member of NATO, it's the only guarantee that Republic of Moldova can be protected against foreign invaders. Again, nobody in the government of Moldova wants to push the Republic of Moldova to become a member of NATO in this moment, but this strategy will help to better explain to the people of the Republic of Moldova the need of an army. In the Republic of Moldova, the pro-Russian forces are mostly against the existence of a national defense army of the Republic of Moldova. Indifferently, if we are left without defense against the Russian occupation forces in Transnistria. And by putting this forward, this military strategy, by approving this military strategy, the pro-European forces, which won the parliamentary elections on the 28th of September, are trying to improve the defense sector in the Republic of Moldova. So let me be clear. In 10 years, the Republic of Moldova will have an army of 8,500 soldiers and another 2,000 civilians who will work for the Ministry of Defense. This doesn't count, not even as a division in the Russian army, I think. But Russian propaganda has transformed this strategy in a bulwark of conspiracy theories, of fake news, and are trying to push a narrative that the Republic of Moldova is very close joining the war in Ukraine by this strategy. But this is not new for us. Every day we see this kind of hybrid assault against our institution and against our population.
Right, you mentioned this giant fake narrative that Russia is trying to push in Moldova, whereas trying to convince people that the goal is to be a join NATO, join the war in Ukraine, go to war with Russia. But the recent election actually saw Maya Sandu's pro-EU party perform very well, probably better than a lot of people expected. Is it fair to say that this is a result of these narratives no longer having any effective in the country, or people's general sentiment towards the possibility of aligning closer to NATO is actually being viewed more as a positive thing?
So when you speak about the NATO image in the Republic of Moldova, we must take into account our Soviet past. But of course, year by year, more people in the Republic of Moldova better understand the need of security for the Republic of Moldova. The vote obtained by the party in government, PAS, it's a vote for European Union. It's not only the votes for PAS. But if you look at the way that people voted, you will see that even regions which before voted mostly against, for example, against the referendum for European integration, they are slowly realizing the threat of Russian menace. And again, diaspora played a very important electoral role in these elections, as it did in the last 5 elections. And by assuring almost 80% of the vote in diaspora, the current government in power has obtained a majority of 55 mandates in 101 deputies parliament in the Republic of Chisinau. So we have seen this kind of narratives being thrown against the electorate of the Republic of Moldova, and unfortunately, the Orthodox Church here in the Republic of Moldova, which one of them is a branch of the Russian Orthodox Church, has been used massively by this propaganda machine. Over 900 Telegram channels, hundreds of channels on TikTok, on Viber, are used to spread this kind of anti-European, anti-NATO, and even sometimes anti-Polish propaganda in our public area.
All right. Thank you so much for your input and insight. I really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on Eastern Express.
Thank you.
And now we're moving on to the Eastern News Flash, a series of all the other stories from the East that you don't want to miss. Russia is weighing a fuel price cap to calm public unrest as Ukrainian drone strikes hit refineries and pump run dry from Crimea to Urals.
Russia's Federal Anti-Monopoly Service is reviewing a proposal to impose price ceilings at gas stations amid nationwide fuel shortages. The National Automobile Union urged authorities to tie pump prices to regional inflation levels, but experts warn it could backfire. Ukraine has struck at least 16 of Russia's 38 oil refineries since August, disrupting supplies and forcing gasoline rationing in at least 4 regions, including Tyumen and Sverdlovsk. In Crimea, half of all gas stations have stopped selling fuel altogether. Some economists claim that price caps without subsidies could make the crisis worse, especially for independent stations. Moscow insists the shortages are temporary, but with 360 stations closed since July, many Russians are running on empty.
Nearly 90 people have been detained in Belarus in connection to a newly defunct military monitoring group, a fresh wave of repression targeting citizens linked to open-source intelligence.
The Minsk regime has arrested at least 88 people accused of supporting Belarusian Hayun, a now-shuttered project that tracked Russian and Belarusian troop movements. The group's database was hacked earlier this year, reportedly exposing supporters to security services. Many of the detentions occurred in the Gomel region. Courts are processing the cases swiftly, with several suspects added to the government's list of extremists. Some trials have already resulted in prison sentences. Kyiv condemned the arrest, accusing Minsk of creating a political, quote, exchange fund. Human rights groups say the crackdown is part of Lukashenko's broader effort to suppress dissent and curry favor with Moscow, 2 years after Belarus allowed Russian troops to invade Ukraine from its territory.
Georgia's ruling party is courting Belarus in China, while shunning Western partners after a contested local vote and crackdown on protest.
We are facing some.
Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze hosted the ambassadors of Belarus in China just days after his party swept flawed local elections with a record low turnout. Lukashenko's support after elections is especially controversial. Georgia and Belarus signed a 2016 security pact allowing cooperation targeting, quote, crimes against the constitutional order, language often used to justify repression. Rights groups say Tbilisi may have even sought Belarusian advice after violently dispersing pro-EU protests last year. Meanwhile, Beijing is expanding its footprint. China's ambassador invited Prime Minister Kobakhidze to a major Shanghai Trade Expo, their 5th high-level meeting in 10 months. Georgia's deepening ties with authoritarian powers contrasts sharply with its constitutional commitment to EU and NATO membership.
And that's all on this episode of Eastern Express. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.